The summer nights in our small suburban neighborhood always held a certain magic. The air was thick with warmth and the scent of blooming jasmine, mingling with the distant sound of laughter and the occasional crackle of a barbecue. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the day surrendered its heat to the cool embrace of evening, and the houses, bathed in the soft glow of porch lights, began to hum with life. On this particular night, I found myself standing in my dimly lit living room. The window cracked open just enough to let in a gentle breeze. I had settled into a familiar routine, scrolling through my phone, half-heartedly attempting to watch a show that had long since lost its charm. But my attention drifted, drawn outside by the sounds of the world beyond my screen. It was then that I heard her, the sweet, haunting melody floating through the warm night air. It was a tune I recognized, one that had danced through my mind on numerous occasions, a song that seemed to be as much a part of her as her vibrant red hair and the freckles that dusted her cheeks. My neighbor, Lily, was in her kitchen, and she was humming. I paused, leaning closer to the window, entranced by the sound. There was something intimate about it, as if her song was a secret meant only for the night. With the window between our houses open just enough to spill light into the darkness, I could see her silhouette moving gracefully against the backdrop of her cozy kitchen. The yellow light cast a warm glow, illuminating the delicate dance of her fingers as she stirred something in a pot on the stove. Suddenly, she turned, her gaze locking onto mine with an intensity that took me by surprise. It was as if she had sensed my presence all along, waiting for the moment to invite me in. Her expression was one of playful curiosity, her lips curling into a smile that felt like an unspoken invitation. "Come in if you're already watching," she said, her voice a soft whisper that seemed to wrap around me like the warm night air. I hesitated, caught in the delicate web of her gaze. It felt like a choice I shouldn't make, a crossing of boundaries that had, until this moment, remained untraveled. But the allure of her presence, the warmth of her smile, tugged at something deep inside me. I found myself crossing that invisible line, stepping away from the safety of my living room and into the embrace of the evening. As I approached her door, the sound of her humming filled my ears, a siren's call luring me closer. I knocked gently, my heart racing with anticipation and a hint of apprehension. The door swung open almost instantly, revealing her in a simple white tank top and denim shorts, her hair tied up in a messy bun. The warmth of her kitchen spilled out into the night, mingling with the scent of herbs and something sweet simmering on the stove. "Hey!" she greeted, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I was wondering if you'd take the plunge." "Guess I did," I replied, trying to sound casual but feeling the weight of my decision settle heavily on my shoulders. "Good choice," she said with a grin, stepping aside to let me in. As I crossed the threshold, I felt an electric charge in the air, a sense of possibility that made my heart race. The kitchen was a delightful chaos, filled with the warm aroma of garlic and tomatoes, colorful vegetables strewn across the counter, and pots bubbling on the stove. The walls were adorned with vibrant paintings, each piece telling a story of her travels and dreams. Felt alive, much like Lily herself. "Sorry for the mess," she said, glancing around with a sheepish smile. "I got a bit carried away with dinner." "Looks great," I replied, genuinely impressed. "What are you making?" "Pasta primavera," she said, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "It's a summer staple. Want to help?" Before I could answer, she handed me a knife and a cutting board, guiding me toward the pile of vegetables. I found myself chopping bell peppers and zucchini, the rhythm of the task calming my racing thoughts. The kitchen filled with laughter and shared stories as we worked side by side, a comfortable intimacy growing between us. "So, what's the story behind the song?" I asked, breaking the easy silence that had settled between us. "Oh, it's an old lullaby my grandmother used to sing," she said, her voice softening with nostalgia. "It always made me feel safe, like everything would be okay." Your grandmother sounds lovely, I said, imagining the warmth of her embrace and the stories woven into her songs. She was, Lily replied, a hint of sadness creeping into her voice. I miss her sometimes, but I like to think I carry a piece of her with me. Music has a way of doing that, you know? I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. In that moment, I realized how much I had come to admire her, her strength, her vulnerability. It was a side of her I had never seen, and I felt honored to be a part of it, even for just a fleeting moment. As the pasta cooked, we moved to the small dining table, setting it with mismatched plates and silverware. The simple act of sharing a meal felt like a sacred ritual, a celebration of our connection that had blossomed in the warm summer night. Once we sat down, the conversation flowed easily. We shared stories of our childhoods, our dreams, and the paths that had led us to this moment. I learned about her love for photography, how she captured the world through her lens, and her aspirations to travel to far-off places. In turn, I shared my own dreams, my struggles, and the moments that had shaped me. The more we talked, the more I felt the walls between us dissolve, replaced by an unspoken understanding that we were both searching for something. A sense of belonging, perhaps, or simply the warmth of connection in a world that often felt cold and distant. After dinner, we moved back to the kitchen, where the last of the dishes awaited us. As we washed and dried, our fingers brushed against each other, sparking a warmth that sent shivers down my spine. I could feel the tension building between us, a palpable energy that hung in the air like an unsung melody. "Do you believe in fate?" Lily asked suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. I paused, the question hanging heavily between us. "I think there are moments that feel like fate," I replied, my heart racing. "Like this." She turned to me, her eyes searching mine, and for a moment, everything else faded away. The world outside ceased to exist, and it was just the two of us, suspended in a moment that felt both fragile and infinite. "Yeah, I think so too," she said softly, stepping closer. The space between us shrank, the air thick with unexpressed desires. But then, just as quickly as the moment had arrived, it dissipated. Lily stepped back, breaking the spell that had woven itself around us. "I should clean this up," she said, her voice distant now, tinged with uncertainty. I nodded, the disappointment settling in my chest like a stone. "Right? I can help." "No, it's okay. Just sit for a moment," she replied, turning her back to me as she busied herself with the dishes. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that the evening had taken a turn I hadn't anticipated. The warmth of our connection lingered in the air, but now it felt fraught with tension, a delicate balance teetering on the edge of something more. As I watched her, the way she moved with grace and purpose, I felt a surge of admiration mixed with longing. The flickering light cast shadows across her face, accentuating the way her eyes sparkled with unspoken thoughts. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap that had formed between us, but the weight of uncertainty held me back. Finally, as the last dish was washed and dried, she turned to me, her expression softening. "Thanks for coming over. I didn't expect company tonight." "Neither did I," I admitted, feeling the warmth of her gaze wrap around me once more. "But I'm glad I did." "Me too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The atmosphere shifted again, a fragile hope lingering in the air. I could see the question in her eyes, the same one that danced on my lips but remained unspoken. Did we dare cross that line? Did we want to? "Would you like to stay a bit longer?" she asked, her voice trembling with the weight of possibilities. "I could play some music." "I'd like that," I replied, my heart soaring at the invitation. She moved to her small living room, where an old record player sat nestled among books and trinkets. As she dropped the needle onto the vinyl, the soft croon of a jazz melody filled the room, wrapping around us like a warm embrace. "Come dance with me," she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief once more. I hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. But the pull of her invitation was irresistible. I stepped closer, feeling the warmth radiating from her as she took my hand, leading me into the center of the room. We swayed gently to the music, our bodies moving in sync, the world outside fading into oblivion. The rhythm pulsed through us, igniting something deep within, an energy that crackled in the air. As we danced, I could feel the tension from earlier melting away, replaced by a sense of freedom and joy. Her laughter filled the space, light and airy, and I couldn't help but join in, the sound echoing through the warm summer night. And then, as if the universe conspired to bring us closer, she leaned in, her breath warm against my ear. "I've been hoping you'd come over," she whispered, her voice laced with vulnerability. My heart raced at her words, the unspoken connection between us deepening. I turned to face her, our eyes locking once more, and in that moment, everything fell away. The fear, the uncertainty, the boundaries we had set for ourselves. They all disappeared, leaving only the truth of what we felt. Without thinking, I leaned in, closing the distance between us. Our lips met, softly at first, a tentative exploration of what had been bubbling beneath the surface for far too long. But as the kiss deepened, it became a dance of its own, a culmination of all the moments that had led us here. It was sweet and electric, a promise of something more. The world outside faded completely, leaving only the warmth of our connection, the melody of the music wrapping around us like a soft blanket. When we finally pulled away, breathless and wide-eyed, the reality of what had just happened settled in. We stood in the dim light of her living room, the echoes of the night surrounding us, and in that moment, I knew that this was just the beginning of something beautiful. "Wow," I breathed, a smile spreading across my face. "Yeah," she replied, her cheeks flushed with color. "Wow." We stood there for a moment, savoring the magic that hung in the air, the promise of what was to come. The night stretched before us, filled with endless possibilities, and I couldn't help but feel that this summer evening would forever change the course of our lives. As we moved back into the kitchen, the light spilling from the window, I realized that I had crossed a threshold into something extraordinary. And it was all because I had dared to step into her world, to embrace the unknown, and to follow the music that had led me there. And in that moment, under the stars and the soft glow of the kitchen light, I knew that I had found not just a neighbor, but a partner in this beautiful dance we call life.